Hello everybody, this is Petey from BurgZerg Arcade at BurgZergArcade.net, and here we are back again with another tutorial for our item system. So let's go ahead, we'll open up Unity. And today I was originally going to start working on our database script for our objects, so we'll go ahead, we'll start that. We've already got the IS quality database, so let's go ahead and create a new script. We've done this a million times, you should be familiar with it. This is going to be called the IS, what do we want to call it? I guess just object. And of course, we want to make sure that we spell that right. There we go. IS object database, double check. Everything's great. Let's open it up. We'll go ahead, we'll reload everything. And where is IS? There we go. Object. I'm going to come through here. There's one thing we did forget to do. That was to make sure this is serializable. This happens a lot. I end up wondering why things don't show up properly. And then I come in and I take a look and I'm like, oh, it's not serialized. All right, so we made that serializable. We're going to go ahead and leave that there. We're going to come back in. And we're going to clear all of this out. We got to put it in the namespace as well. This is going to be a scriptable object. And let's just copy the namespace. And bam. All right, so we're going to sit down, take a look at this, figure out what methods we want. And we're probably going to come out to, let's move this over here, something pretty close to this, right? We're going to have another serialized field and or public, either or. If you make it serialized field, you have all these methods. You can just make it public and allow them direct access. But as I've said many times before, I like to hide it. So I'm just probably going to end up copying all of this and just end up changing what type we're doing. And this is where you start getting into a situation where it's a really great time to start using generics. So that we can just make the one class and just pass in the type that we want to deal with. And that's what I want to work on today. So instead of going ahead and copying this over, getting it all working, and then making the generic, I decided just to skip a step. We're going to jump ahead and just go ahead and start today with, creating the generic. So buckle in, it's going to be a while. So I'm going to save this off. I'm going to come back out, see BurgZerg Arcade. I want it in the scripts. I want the folder hierarchy to be a little bit different. But we're just going to put it here for now. I know later on I'll want to move it around in the folders a bit, but for now we're just going to put it out here with the rest of the scripts. I don't like having all the scripts together like this. I like to have at least some sort of folder hierarchy. Usually I create my folder hierarchy in the same hierarchy that I have my namespaces going. And I guess maybe as we go along, we'll fix that. But for now, we're just going to leave it there because this is going to be long enough just making the generic. So this script is just going to be, well, basically the same thing that we use for all of our scriptable object databases. So that seems like a good name. Scriptable object database. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Reload everything. We'll go ahead and we'll save here. After we're done with that. It wants to update the file endings there. Looks like all the rest are okay. And of course, we're going to go ahead and gut this because we never use this stuff. We're going to inherit from scriptable object, and we need that namespace. Namespace is going to be a little bit different this time because this isn't actually part of the item system. I did get it here, right? Yeah. This actually isn't part of the item system. So part of every system. So I'm just going to say BurgZerg Arcade. All right, so let's start passing in our generics. Well, first off, we're going to want to type here. Now I'm just going to call it type T. And I want to put a little bit of a condition on here. I'm going to say where T is a class. I want to make sure I'm passing a class in here. I don't want to ever pass an interface in. That should be good for our first line. So to start off with, we're going to create that serialized field. I'm going to put a space. Now we're still going to make a list, and I had to put generics up here in order to get access to it. Now I know some people ask how I remember all the namespace and just everything in general. Practice. You just do it over and over and over again, and you learn. So the type of list that we're actually going to use here is going to be the exact same type that we pass in up here. So for us, that's going to be T. And think of that T as just a variable, except instead of being like an int or a string or something like that, we're actually going to be passing in a class, an actual whole class type. So In the case of the iQuality, we'll be passing in the isQuality class. And I'm going to stick to keep calling it database. And right off the bat, I'm just going to have it equal a new list T. I was hoping it wouldn't drop it down. I'm just going to leave it on that line. No, I like it up on the line. Now let's go ahead and start working through all of the methods. We probably could just cut and paste a bunch of them. Or copy paste, I should say. Because all we're really going to be doing is changing the type. So I'm actually going to do that. Save a little bit on the typing. All right. So we're going to keep getting this error here, but all we really have to do is just come down to T. You could probably do a search and replace, but it gives me a chance to talk about some of this stuff. So we all know I like to talk. So using Unity Editor, that'll get rid of this error. And I just want to go through just to make sure everything is proper. Next down, remove T item. There, count will be the same. Here where we're getting. We're going to return a T, whatever it is we're being passed in. And we need the linked library for that one. So using system.link. That gets rid of that. Come down here, replace. Oh, look, we just do a T. And that is it. But there are actually a couple of things I like to add to this database as well. If you think about all the database, we're constantly loading and creating them as well. So I like to actually throw these methods in here as well. It saves us for constantly typing it over and over for every editor we create to have to go ahead and type this method out each time. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to call this method, I guess, get database. And it has to be public. And the thing with this method, as we're going to see a little bit later on, is when we're creating the database, it has to return a scriptable object. So I'm going to go ahead and do something similar to that we did up here. Since we're using variable T, let's just start off, by making a new U variable. This is going to be our return type. I'm going to say get database. The database will be of type U. And I want to pass a few things in here. And they're just going to be strings. It's two of them. We're going to want to know what the path is that we need to use to load the database, as well as the name of the database that we want to load. And just like we did up top, I want to say where U is equal to a scriptable object, just so we don't pass something else in. It has to be a scriptable object. Sorry. And we're getting an error here. It's because we're not returning anything. For now, I'm just going to say, well, actually, we're just going to never mind the error. I usually like to get rid of the error right away. Nah, we'll screw it. We'll just keep going through, typing through. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and come into our database script that we had before. So we want the editor. We don't have it loaded, do we? We got so many things here loaded. Let's go ahead and close these down. And I think I'm done with the database. We're going to be playing around with it a bit, but we'll keep it open. We can close this one. We'll work with that later. Let's keep this one open. And let's grab the other editor. And we're going to come down to where we're loading and saving. Shrink that down. All right, we did it right here on enable. And we're going to be using quite a bit of this code. All right, so let's come in. We'll just copy paste it all. We'll come in here, do a quick paste. We'll get some errors because we don't have certain things assigned. But let's go ahead. We'll start off here. So I'm going to create a new string here, and I'm going to call it DB full path. So the full path to the database. And that's going to be equal to, let's use escapes, assets, which is our main assets folder that Unity creates for us. So basically, every folder you create, like when we created our scene folder, basically we're talking about this folder. Unity creates it for us, and everything we put in gets put in there. So I'm going to say assets. We're going to append on the DB path, and then we're going to go ahead and throw on the DB name as well. So now I have three strings to work with. I have the path, the full path, and the name. We'll be using those in this method to make sure that the folder exists. And next, I guess we'll go ahead and try to load it up or see if it exists. So we're storing it in U. So we'll go ahead and say U is equal to asset database.load asset at path. And the path we want to use is db full path. The type of will be U, which is a scriptable object. We don't know what kind of scriptable object. It could be anything, but it has to be of type scriptable object. And we're also going to typecast it as U, just to be safe. Oh, no, we need a capital on that one. And we got a little bit of an error here. And that's because that's the type. We got to go ahead and actually create a variable of type U to store this in. So we're just going to call it db. So now we'll come down here, do like before. We'll just check to see if db is equal to null. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of comments here. Check to see if it's not the folder, it's the actual, well, check to see if the folder exists. And we're going to go through, check, let's do my escapes. And this is the db path, the path that we're passed in. And we're going to say if it doesn't exist, we want to go ahead and create it. Great, so this will create the path for us. So next I'm going to create the database and refresh the assets database. Actually, it's asset singular. So we'll go ahead. We're calling it DB now instead of quality. Do you know what type it is? Go ahead. You can do it. It's type U. And I'm also going to type it as U as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create the assets. Do you know what we're going to be creating? Well, DB, what we created above. And the full path is what we grabbed up here and created. Now, I know we could have just went ahead and actually, no, we used it in two spots. We needed it in both spots. As I said, we just go ahead and just put this down here instead of creating a string. But I like to create the string anyway. It's only going to be called once. It's not a function that we're calling over and over and over. So I feel fine with that. Okay, then we're going to go ahead. We're going to create it. We're going to save it. I like to refresh it. And then after here, we should have it. Even if it's empty, we should have it. So I'm going to return U. That gets rid of all of our errors. No, we don't return U, sorry. Return DB, which is of type U. Whew, done. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to test this out. And since we have the quality one all set up, we're going to go ahead and start with this one. Now it gets really simple because all we want to do is inherit the type of scriptable object database here. And we'll gain access to all of these methods. Plus, we could also add more if we needed them for this particular database. So instead of just being scriptable object, we're going to be scriptable object database. I'm going to go ahead and type it all out. Scriptable object database right here. And it's going to ask us for a type now where T is a class. The class that we want to pass in is whatever one we're going to be working with. In this case, it's IS quality. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste that in. And that is actually it. We can go ahead, comment out all of this code now. And I know there's a way to have it comment everything out, a block that you have. I'm just trying to remember what it is in Visual Studio. If someone knows, go ahead and let me know down below. I'll just fast forward the video here. I'll tell you what, instead of commenting it all out, I'm going to be working through it anyway. So good thing is I have a Git repository, so I have it all saved. And when I have an empty class that I know I'm not going to be adding anything to, I just like to do it like this. To each their own. Now, in order to get this to work, we have to play around with the actual editor script as well, because now we're going to be calling it differently. So this is the editor. I actually want it over here. We can actually go ahead and we're going to be changing all of this around as well now. So I'm going to come in, take out all of the on enable stuff. I'm going to go ahead and take out the stuff that we commented out from a couple of videos ago as well, since we no longer need it. And there's one more, just to try to keep it as clean as possible. All right, back to on enable. Now I want to go ahead and load the database up. And I already forget what we're calling it here. We're calling the database here quality database. So the way we do this now is quality database is equal to quality database dot And was it get database? Get database. And then go ahead, pass in the type. In this case, it's IS quality. And then we have to go ahead and pass in the path as well as the name, which I have up here, the folder name and file name. So database folder name. And I should rename that to path just to be a little bit more explicit on what it is. And file name. Go ahead, save that off. And we have an error here. So what's our error? And my bad, we're not passing in the type IS quality. It's IS quality database. We're passing in a database type here. This is the U parameter. Let's go ahead, we'll save that off. And let's load up our editor and see what it looks like. So we got a couple null references here. So we're going to go ahead and work through those. We won't be able to close it until we fix them. So get them where there's just them. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. So it's in our list view. So we're probably going to have to go through and change a few things in here now. Let's get back here. I just want to make sure I got this line right. Yeah. And again, just rename this. Database path. And database name. And I can already see the problem. We're trying to go ahead and access methods, but we haven't actually created it yet. And there's a little bit of a difference in the way we create scriptable objects as opposed to the regular class that we're used to creating. Normally we do something like quality database is equal to new IS quality database. We'd save that off. We come back in. And we see here that it must be instantiated with scriptable object.create instance. While I'm here, I'm also going to delete the database and the file. We don't have to, but I just want to check something out while I'm creating it after. So that's the first one we'll want to fix is we want to use create instance. So do just like it says, scriptable object dot create instance, and we want to create an instance with the type attached to it. And that type is going to be IS quality database. Make sure it's right. Looks good. We're going to go ahead. We'll save this off. Come back in. We're not getting any errors. So let's go ahead. We'll start it up. And it's showing. And we got the database. I just want to make sure I'm not creating multiple. Some people have the problem where they're getting multiple database folders. So if they do it, then they close it down. They try to start it back up. And they'd get another folder with, like database 1. And that's because the line where you're searching to look for the database, which now is moved to scriptable object databases. So the section here where you're looking for the folder, you've got something wrong there. And that's why you're getting the other folders. But everything's going great. So we'll go ahead, we'll grab one. And we'll save it. Let's add another one here. We'll do a circle. And we'll add one more. Just good things come in threes, right? Now we'll close it. I'm going to go ahead and look at my database here. There they all are again. We'll put them up. Everything should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and save the scene. I'm going to close Unity. Then we'll just simply restart it again. And I notice after editing the videos, the window you use to select the project that you want to open up in Unity never actually shows up in the videos, which I thought was kind of weird. So we'll go ahead and select the database. We'll take a look here, and all three have saved. So let me see. I know there's one other thing I wanted to do here. We'll reload them all and save. And I want to come down to GUI. Where is it? In our editor. This is something I encounter every so often. Not a whole lot, but it's enough to drive me nuts. I can never figure it out. Sometimes you're going to come down here and on GUI, for some reason, fires off before on enable, or at least before it has a chance to load this up. So what I like to do is just come down here and say if, and whatever database you're working with, in this case it's quality database, is equal to null. Now you don't have to have this. I'm probably going to get rid of it later on. But if you do run into the problem and you know that you're loading it up, you can add some debug statements up here just to see if you're actually loading it up and everything's okay. But if for some reason on GUI appears to be firing before on enable, or at least before everything's loaded up for the database, let's come down here and throw in a debug.log warning. And I'm just going to say, could not, the database is quality database not loaded. And I'm simply going to throw a return statement in there. So it busts out of on GUI. And that way there, it will not try to go to do list view or any of the other methods that you have in your on GUI. I was actually expecting to get it here, but I did not get it this time around. So one more time. Well, I'm just going to add one more. Legendary. What have we not used? We've used circle, check mark. Ah, crap. We used them all. Oh, we'll just use this one. Great. Now, whoops. I keep thinking that's an enter button. We'll close that. And now we're going to go ahead and work on our other database, which was IS object database. Right here. And now instead of inheriting from scriptable object and doing all that typing, all we have to do is make it a scriptable object database. And the type we want to pass in is IS object. And like I said before, because it's an empty class, I don't plan on adding anything into it. We can go ahead and add that. Now let's say there were a few special methods we wanted to add specifically for this class. You just simply just do it like you do any other class. Anyway, I know generics can be a little confusing. Let me know down in the comments if you understand everything going on. We can make another video that's outside of the series that maybe explains a little bit more about the generics and how everything's working. There's a few other ways we could have actually done it. I like this way. It keeps it all encapsulated in one script. This is really just the first pass at creating that generic script. There's going to be a few tweaks here and there as we go along. But yeah, go ahead and let me know down below in the comments. And I'll see you over in the next video. Bye-bye.